like we are starting to get pretty populated here. You know, if you want to take it away like you always do, Andrew, and I'll
Sure.
so.
Yeah, awesome. So again, thank you for joining us. This is our third virtual small programs roundtable. I'm Andrew Doyle. I'm from the Southern New Hampshire University. I'll let Chris introduce himself.
My name is Chris Crume. I am at Denison University here in Granville, Ohio, but coming to you via Mr. Rogers' house today. So I thought that was a little comforting.
All right, so we're going to get started. If you've been with us before, you've heard this at least twice. If this is the first time you're joining us, we always start off with a couple ground rules for the roundtable. Chris is sharing his screen. Here we go. So ground rules for today. The first one is positivity. This is a difficult time for all of us, and we want to make sure we're focusing on the things that are good, the things that we can control, and how we can, make the situation better for everybody. Be creative. If you have something that you think you're the only one doing, please be willing to share it. I'm hoping that that's why we're here. This is a community for everybody, so try and do that. And then the final rule is focus on the students. That's why we do what we do, and try and keep that in mind with some of the topics that we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna steal a little bit here from Ryan Seacrest, and I'm just gonna ask Andrew, before we get started, share something positive with me today. Tell me something good.
Oh wow.
And you can turn the tables.
Oh, I will. But so something positive. I guess the best thing to put right now for me is we have a senior dog who has been dealing with some illnesses, and I think the upside of us being home is we're able to keep him comfortable, keep him in good shape, and he's doing better than he has in the past couple months. So that's my positive spin on working from home. How about you, Chris?
I think that the positive for me has just been a real appreciation for my students, and what we miss and what we kind of take for granted every day. As an essential employee, I have to go in and check our buildings. And the other day I was checking it, and I literally stood in my office for about 5 minutes and just stared. And I was like, I miss this. I take this for granted every day, and it's just given me a renewed sense of, okay, this is what we're here for. It's for those students. So just that joy, and being able to celebrate with them still, even though we're distant physically, we can still celebrate all their wonderful accomplishments together. So
I think that's a great answer. Feel free to share what a positivity for today in the chat box if you want. But I think for now it's ready to jump right into the conversation, right?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. So the last couple of times we've had these meetings, we've kind of focused on the current and how we're adapting to the pandemic and programming and moving forward. I think now we want to look to the future and talk about what are we doing, what changes have been made that may be out of our control, and how are we dealing with them. So our first question is, what are your preparations for summer look like? I know a lot of schools are being asked to think about multiple scenarios of, all right, if rental groups don't come back, we do this. If we don't come back in the fall, we're doing this. So think short term, in about a month from now for some people, maybe a little bit further for others. What have you started planning on at your university? Chris, I'll ask you first. What are your plans for the next couple months?
Yeah, right now, here in Ohio, we're still under a stay-at-home order until May 1st. So that kind of, gets the next month kind of, wrapped up for us. But after that, we're a small institution that does not actually do summer classes. We do a lot of camps, conferences in the summer. We are slowly starting to look at what that could potentially look like, depending on what CDC and what the state of Ohio says for us. Me personally, I am actually making like a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, really just based upon, okay, if we open by June 1st, this is what our summer looks like. If we open by July 1st, here's what our summer looks like. If we open by August 1st, here's what everything looks like. And then, what does the fall semester actually look like for us as well? And, in regards to, scheduling our staff, getting our programs, our reservations and rentals in. It's really, again, putting it into one of those 4 categories, and then kind of waiting and seeing, okay, now we're past this deadline, now we're going to go to plan B. So I think that's the biggest thing to think about right now, is just plan as much as you can, but also have 2, 3, 4 backups.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, and I think you're in the same situation as a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm seeing in the chat is a lot of people are already online for the summer for classes, and then they're internally working through scenarios. Let's see. So I was just on a call with Meredith, so I'm going to call her out, especially since her chat just popped up. Meredith Merchant from WPI, would you mind sharing a little bit about your planning process?
Sure. So summer-wise, as of right now, we are completely closed. Our online courses, our courses for the summer are all online. Tuesday, they're making that final decision and going to notify summer programs completely. The whole entire summer will be non-existent. We've given our athletic teams opportunities to maybe do something virtually if the summer programming was to be nixed, just to try to get some sort of revenue and give something to the community. In the fall, we're coming up with multiple scenarios. So WPI, we're 7-week terms. So we have that benefit, I think, where we don't need to decide if we're going back in January, where we could easily go back in October, knowing like maybe a term would just be online. So we have the scenario of if we're to return an A term, what would that look like, and what do we need to do in order for the facility to open, as in how much earlier did we need to get there in order for this to happen. If we come back in B term, what does that look like? And then, of course, with the NCAA on an athletic standpoint, it would mean that the possibility of we are transitioning to winter, fall, and spring sports all beginning in January together. I know that's a conversation NCAA has had. So I'd say, what does it look like? And more importantly, what do we need to do in order to make sure we do open in that timeline? So.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see what else is here in the chat.
And really, that's a lot of what our department has actually been talking about, since we're a combined department anyway, is, what are the sports seasons going to look like? Are they going to be, all, crammed into what would traditionally be your winter/spring type of season? And how does that impact, facilities, availability for, what we need to do? I've seen a lot of folks on here, online classes for the summer, it looks like, as well. Probably the safest bet for a lot of schools out there is online classes during the summer would be my guess. So.
Well, and also I think one thing to additionally note with that is that that's okay. So if things are starting in January, what does that look like on a recreation standpoint for club sports and intramurals? And how do we somehow get creative in the fact of that we still continue as well? So.
Yeah, because spaces are going to be taken up a lot more frequently than they might have, when you've got, maybe 20 sports participating instead of just, 6 or 7 during a season. What does that look like? So yeah, no, we're facing similar situations on, does football end up, later? Does it end up at all? What does that look like? What sports can go? What sports can't?
I'm seeing some people talking about like rental groups and programs from over the summer. One that I saw is summer camps are canceled through mid-July. At SNHU, we don't have any like in-house camps. We just have mostly rental groups, and a lot of the larger ones have already canceled on their own. But for those people that are making the decisions or a part of that conversation of our camps happening, our programs happening, is anyone willing to speak, talk about those conversations, what went into those and how those decisions were made? Because they're not easy decisions. I had one in here from Anthony. I'm looking for the last name. I don't know if you're willing to talk a little bit about that, if that was something you were a part of. Oh, he has no microphone. Okay, so
I mean, I know that's something we're looking at, as well as what do summer camps look like. We know that we won't be able to get our traditional start on those, in late May, early June. It's probably just not going to be feasible. But we are looking at what does that look like? how does that impact, our coaching staff and stuff like that, being on the varsity side, because a lot of our varsity coaches are the ones that host our sport camps. So we're looking, how can we safely return to doing that? How can we return to, a normal in what is an unnormal situation? Some of the other things I'm looking at is, I'm seeing in the chat, hiring of student staff is going to be done remotely. I think that's happening for a lot of folks, both for summer staff and really for fall staff. When you start to think about it, that's kind of how we're going to have to, look at doing our hiring. We're getting ready next week to do Zoom interviews for all of our student supervisors, something that we've not ever done before. But, we'll actually end up in the long run giving them, a valuable experience, I think, because that's the way that the world is going anyway. I mean, I know that I've personally had Zoom interviews in the last few years and I wasn't ready for those. I mean, I'm an old school guy. We did phone interviews back in my day. So, but it's going to, I think there is a silver lining in that kind of stuff, is that we do give them these experiences that are going to be valuable when they leave and they start to, look for those jobs outside of the university once they graduate. So
some of the comments I'm seeing, Anthony mentioned that it was admin that decided about what was going on there. Meredith is putting some great comments about the decisions and how a lot of it is up to city and state regulations, ability to hire, those kind of decisions that are kind of out of our control and things that we can't really focus on. Summer camps at Texas A&M Galveston have been canceled. Summer classes online through summer 2. All orientations moved online. Orientation, that's something that seems to be popping up a lot. And we just had an announcement made last week that our orientation is going to be completely virtual, much like a lot of our recruitment events for like accepted students days and things like that. My question for people with that is, how are you going to stay engaged with the incoming class and students through those events? That's how we do a lot of recruiting for student employees, and that's how we meet a lot of people and let people know about our programs. My hope is that we can do some kind of either a panel discussion that we would typically do in person, to some kind of event specific to the orientation or accepted students day. Our admission staff has reached out to, in the hopes of opening up our offerings, like our esports offerings, to potential students and accepted students that haven't committed yet. Is anyone else doing anything like that?
I know one of the things we've done here at Denison is we have actually, started working on virtual tours of the campus for those students that might be either visiting as juniors or, those, seniors that might still be on the fence about, coming to Denison. We're doing a lot of, we just released our virtual tour today, which was pretty unique and pretty cool to see. And we're kind of talking about what does Juno or June orientation look like? What does August orientation look like? How do we manage that as a university? And I think that also has to go for how do we orientate our staffs as well for coming back in the fall or possibly in the summer.
I know we were just on a call earlier put on by Meredith, and we talked about staff training. And a lot of people are doing theirs online. One, because it saves you a lot of money in the budget, and two, it's just a little bit easier to manage with all the restrictions going on with group sizes. We actually started working on a platform for online training. It's Google Classrooms. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it's cheap, if not free. It's something you can easily, monitor. So it's something I would look at. Something that came up on the call earlier is trying to use the same platform that your academic programs use. So if you have Brightspace, using that. If you have Blackboard, trying to use that. Looking.
Yeah, we started using Google Classroom last summer to do digital onboarding for our student staff, mainly just so that we could have more team building and, the in-person interactions be a little bit more about, building the group together instead of just talking at them. you know, they don't really respond to that very well. So we actually, did that last year, and we actually had some really good success with that. A lot of retention on the information. So it definitely is a great way to go. Like I said, I've been doing it for a year. So if anybody has questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to put my email right in the chat. So just reach out to me by email, and I can show you what we've done and kind of talk you through our process on that.
I might take you up on that.
Absolutely.
I'm seeing a lot of comments about, at small programs, we kind of have to get in line with everyone else. If you're working with your marketing department or something like that, what are some ways that people can think of that may help, make that process easier for the marketing department? I know that we try and keep a library of, photos and like videos if we take any, nothing necessarily professionally done, but does anyone do anything creative to try and help your marketing program market your programs? Marketing department market your programs? A lot of stuff going on there. Someone is saying be proactive about reaching out to other groups, like reach out to the departments in charge of orientation. Don't wait for them to approach you. That is definitely something I would stress no matter what the situation is always be as proactive so you don't get, left behind. This, and it kind of goes to the same with, continuing programming that we've had on other calls before of, be proactive because I'm not sure about other campuses, but that's what it sounds like, is that people are duplicating the kind of events that we held. I know that our library was putting on group fitness classes for like a week before ours. Well, at the same time, they premiered theirs at the same time we premiered ours. And I mean, in the end, I don't really see the point of having two groups, especially one group that doesn't have much to do with fitness traditionally, putting on that kind of event. So be proactive and do a lot of outreach because one, that puts you in a great position to, it shows your value, which is something that we always kind of come back to. And it's a more opportunity to collaborate with other people instead of duplicating those efforts.
Something I noticed, when as we talk about training, Don, and I'm probably going to mispronounce your last name, so I apologize. Umland, was talking about the challenges of actually, training in CPR, first aid, and bloodborne pathogens, which is something, very crucial to what we all do, and, how we're going to be able to, lift those social distancing barriers to be able to get that kind of training done and what that's going to look like. I know, right now the Red Cross is offering 90-day extensions on a lot of their certifications because of the fact that as a lifeguard, you can't get in and do the skills with somebody right now. That would totally break social distancing. Sharing mannequins, how are we going to do that? I think that's really something to think about as you do look towards preparations for your training. I think the good thing with a lot of that is, there are a lot of the online components to that kind of training already. The Red Cross has, been really a kind of a pioneer in that kind of digital, blended learning training. So you can get a lot of that done before you do come back to campus with the hope of, being able to have that contact and, making those contacts. So the first aid training, Brianna Lacey, I probably pronounced your name wrong again. Again, like I said, the Red Cross isn't supporting any contact until further notice. So it does make those trainings very difficult. So definitely things to think about.
Rebecca Harper mentioned sharing a Google Doc with Student Life. That way they can all download and share each other's programs through social media outlets. That's a great way to do it. If you have the ability and time and willingness to put another Zoom meeting on your calendar, try and do some kind of face-to-face like campus programmers meeting and just get everything out there and try and find ways that you guys can, work together and make the best program as well promoted as you can.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot more, again, folks creating their digital onboarding. I was gonna have Mila jump on real quick and just talk about how she's using Blackboard for that. We've talked a lot about, Google Classrooms, but, I'd be curious to learn, listen about Blackboard and how that process is working.
Okay. Thanks for putting me on the spot, Chris.
I try. Good.
Well, Blackboard is our academic platform that we use. And so you can create an organization within Blackboard that you then invite all of your employees to. So what we're going to do is create like our mission, vision, values, anything we want to stay consistent, because we all hire employees throughout different times of the year also. So if they miss it at the initial orientation, then that message isn't clear and it's not concise from the same person. So we've been wanting to do this for a while, but you wear so many hats, you put out fires every day. And so this has given us time to actually do it. So right now we're creating the content, like, okay, here's the priority content, here's who's in charge of it, here's the timeline to get it done, and then setting parameters. So like, we're going to put bloodborne pathogen, some basic emergency protocols within this framework so they can read it. It's kind of like how Red Cross does lifeguard training right now. So you have to do all this pre-work before you go into the lab or the practical. So we're going to follow that format. But we're in the infancy. We're just creating the priority checklist and everything right now. So not hopefully, it will be done before fall. That's the goal.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And I saw in the comments, Mark Garneau, I think is maybe how you pronounce it. You mentioned there are difficulties when you try and do it for a course. If you are willing and able, if you could just give us a heads up about what those may be so we can be better prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Just talking to my students over the years, they hate Blackboard. It's a lot of work. The different professors only use it for online tests. And that's just what's going on here at Ole Miss. And just one more thing to bring up, my students, staff currently right now are just overwhelmed with classes right now, just going from 1 hour classes turning into a 4-hour class. So right now what we're trying to do is just keep people motivated with little 15-minute coffee chats. And then just thinking about summertime, doing the same thing if all the camps closed, is just keeping people quickly involved. So that's just some of the stuff. And Kahoot, they love Kahoot. Little 15-minute fun stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing out. Coming in through the chat, just to, not to pivot too much away from, so if you're playing, COVID bingo, I just said pivot away. So there's your bingo for the day. Deirdre, I think I pronounced your name right. I had an interesting question about, a lot of us are probably very tuition driven, being small programs in small schools. Does anybody have an idea what fall freshman enrollment looks like on their campuses? I don't know if anybody's willing to share or what that looks like.
Hey, I'll just jump in for a second since I wrote it. I go by D, so you can just call me D. Our enrollment is down by almost 200 deposits from the same time last year. We were anticipating an enrollment right now. I just have a concern that if we don't get the numbers, that more cuts are going to be happening, not only just in the budgets, but as far as operating budgets, but in terms of personnel. Larger schools, because everything's in a state of flux. I feel like at the smaller schools, it has more of a significant impact. But I don't know what other people.
Would you mind repeating that last part again? I think for some people, you may have had a little bit of a jumpy video. So I think we got
Sorry
most of
about
it.
that. Yeah, sorry about that. Our enrollment is down by about 200 deposits from the same time last year, and we were anticipating roughly 1,000, and we're only at about 500 right now. And so, you know, my concern is if the numbers don't increase, especially because I think students are unsure of whether they can afford to go to school, whether or not that's going to have an impact on personnel. I mean, we know it'll have an impact on operating budget, but personnel is a big concern for me.
Mhm.
And sorry about the video freezing.
No worries there. Yeah, I don't know. This is similar to some conversations we had last time. If like there is necessarily a rhyme or reason or right answer to anything right now, I think the best thing that we can do, and I'm sure most people are doing it, is just be as transparent and open and, you know, proactive with whoever you need to be. If it's the budget manager, talking to them, talking to, you know, your dean, your director, whoever it is, just try and be as upfront and, you know, active on this topic as you can be to protect yourself and prepare yourself and your staff. We've seen from my experience, we keep hearing about the concern for retention and the ability to recruit. But at the same time, we've had students that took a semester off that have emailed me in the last week. I've already had 3 or 4 that are already planning on coming back in the fall and looking for jobs. So I don't know if anyone really knows what the actual effect will be at this point, and if there is any pattern. So just try and stay, you know, a part of that conversation at your university as much as you can, as common sense as that sounds, but it's the best advice at this moment from my point of view.
Yeah, and I would echo that. You know, I think from school to school, it's looking very different, you know, across the board. You know, one school may be seeing, you know, no change, maybe seeing an uptick. One school may be seeing, you know, a downward trend. I don't, especially at schools our size right now, I don't know that there's necessarily a rhyme or a reason to, you know, what that's looking like. It could be, you know, I don't know. I can't even speculate what it could be. I think for us, yeah, I think for us as Campus Rec right now, what's important is to continue to tell our story, and to really, you know, kind of like the third question on here is, you know, use the engagement efforts that we're making right now to tell how we, you know, not only how we've been valuable in the past and use that past data, but use the current data that we have to say, look, we've been engaging more with our students now than we ever were before this occurred. So, you know, we're obviously doing something, you know, something right, and that can really, you know, be a make or break when you're talking with your administration. It's all about, you know, selling and telling that story of, you know, why what we do is so important.
And another way to do that, just to piggyback off you, Chris, for a second, is to, you know, you never want to compare apples to oranges, but if you're talking with other people on campus that are doing similar programs, it's good to know, like, if your programs are doing better or worse, and just in worst case scenario, you can kind of see how you match up and what kind of participation rates you're getting, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes 100% sense.
So what else? What other questions? I'm seeing nationwide campus rec may become non-essential, and yes, keeping data as to how we are keeping our students engaged. Yep, that's definitely one of the keys there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's interesting. You know, we were meeting, had a meeting Tuesday. We were talking about the impact that we're having with our virtual Zumba classes right now, and we've actually had more participation since we've gone online than we had, you know, in any class, you know, that we were hosting for, you know, group fitness. So you know, people are definitely really wanting this. They're definitely hungry for it. And I think that's what's going to help keep us off the non-essential list. I think if we can show the service, you know, for health and well-being, especially during, you know, times like this where we are isolated away from folks, and the mental toll that can take, we can show that kind of data that we are making an impact. It will make us more essential, in the long run, when the budgets are coming due and the axes are coming. So.
I think this is the time where I've heard stories from schools in the Midwest where their campus rec staff was deemed non-essential and furloughed right away, and then students and faculty staff came in and said, we want them, we need these programs, we're stuck at home, and they can give us an opportunity to be active. That happened at one school, and then I was on a call earlier, and I think Flick was talking about how people are banging down their door asking for programs, and it's not so much focus on what do we do, it's how do we keep it fresh, and that's something to definitely keep in mind. I see a question here, what are some things schools are doing to keep students engaged? I think one of the big ones is group fitness classes, and I know there's a question about copyright, and we'll get back to that for music. Some things we're doing here is esports. I think a lot of people are doing that. It's a lot of the programs we're doing are very much based around convenience for the participants, because it's hard to get them to commit to a certain time. So when we do group fitness classes, we're recording them and we're putting them up on a library where they can access them later and do on-demand classes. And we'll get about 100 people at the live classes over a week, not in one class. It'd be awesome if we had 100 people in a class. But we'll get like another 400 watching those classes later throughout the week. So we'll have, like you said, Chris, more people interacting with our programs online than ever before because it's more convenient for them. When we're doing, esports, we're doing it through mission control, where they basically get a matchup at the beginning of the week, and then they have a whole week to figure out when they're going to play and do that, and it's convenient for them. That's one of the things I think is that we're learning, is that the flexible schedule is important, and that's something I'm taking into consideration when we're programming moving forward.
Interesting programming thing, to engage students. Emily Walker was asking if anybody is currently running like a virtual 5K, and anybody on here willing to share any information about how they're making that happen for their students. Not a lot of runners in this group, I guess.
I can kind of start us off. Oh, you got somebody?
Brianna says they have a Strava group 5K every Wednesday. Would you talk a little bit about that and kind of that Strava platform?
Well, sure. Hi, Brenna from Missouri Baptist University. This was an idea I got from the NIRSA discussion forum, and I don't know a lot about it yet. We're in our second week. We didn't have very many join the group the first week. I think the biggest challenge I've seen is how the way that the groups are set up is that the person has to create an account with Strava and join the group. So those barriers have definitely likely been the reason we haven't seen as much participation yet. But they also are very focused on the language of running, and they also have cycling. And so I think a lot of people see that race or run, and at least I know, certain students and probably employees aren't going to jump in on that thinking that they need to do it that way. But we're trying to communicate that as best possible to say, you can do it however you want to. It can be, as long as you have the app and track it, and then it uploads, then you get you get entered into our raffle. So for just random prizes for participation.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, as a longtime Strava user for cycling, I can definitely say that there is that kind of competitiveness to that app, but it really does very well at tracking as well. So it is something to think about. Another couple folks, let's see, have talked about it. Anybody else want to talk about how they're doing their 5Ks? Because I think virtual 5Ks is a great idea.
we aren't doing a 5K per se, but we're doing a couple challenges that are, running or just movement based, and we're using Challenge Runner, which has a free way to do that. So I would recommend that if you have a spending freeze. And it's a great way. It can connect to people's fitness trackers so that people are being honest. We've had some very competitive people already, ask for clarifications on people's participation. And if they're connected, it makes it that much easier. But I would recommend checking that out, challengerunner.com.
It's a good one too. Looks like Laura Fitzgerald at SBU is doing one, and it's been very successful. Talk to us a little bit about the success you've had with it.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So my colleague, Tom St. John, he's been really running this program now for a little over a week, I believe. And it's not very formal. It's kind of based on the honor system. We're just trying to get folks engaged, I'm sure, as you all are. And it's kind of basically like you have the option to do a 5K, 10K, half marathon, or all of them, and you can walk or run. You basically track your information and enroll via like a Google sheet that we have on our website. And then you input all the mileage that you've done, and you will get a t-shirt when we come back. So like I said, we're kind of making it like very lax, but it's actually picked up quite a bit. And so I think as of right now, I'm pretty sure we have like 80 something participants. So yeah, but that's been our most successful thing over fitness classes, which I was pretty surprised at. But people are reposting themselves doing it, and they seem to really enjoy it. So that's kind of where we're at.
It's awesome. The more runners we can get out there, the better.
I'm seeing a lot of people talk about prizes and what they're doing, and something I really like is the idea of gift cards or gift cards like to Grubhub and Uber Eats, and I think that's a really great idea, and it's one of the few things that I think people can use right now. So if you have the ability to do that, I would recommend it. I wish we did. I do see some questions about incentive platforms. Christina Rodriguez, would you mind just clarifying when you say incentive platform? What do you mean? I'm a little confused. Or if anyone else may know of an incentive platform that I'm not understanding or knowing of, that'd be great. I mean, we're trying to use prizes. I think some of the questions I've seen are, how do you get those prizes out there? I think we're gonna have to either wait until we get back to campus if they're already on there, or just try and act fast and send them out before they say we can't. We're mostly sending out intramural t-shirts as our prize. That's our big go-to, and we have plenty left at this point, so we're going to try and use those up as much as possible. Some other ideas for programming is if you have the ability or have colleagues that are willing to work with you, or state associations that do things, is try and do like a intramural esports tournament, like an extramural esports tournament. Participate in the quarantine quiz show, which is free to anyone. That's Wednesdays at 8 p.m. on Twitch. Definitely check that out. I plug that every roundtable I'm in. But definitely see if other schools around you are, looking to do some kind of esports, because if you can come together, I think that's a cool way to market a program, is that they can, still prove that they are the best school in the area and play against other schools when they may not have that opportunity on campus.
Chris or Andrew?
Yes.
Hey, this is Don at Augustana. You had mentioned about the esports. It's funny you say that. I just got off about a 30-minute conference call with my esports student coach, because we don't have a varsity team here, but I really haven't done much with him, but I reached out to him about coordinating for next year, probably 6 or 7 different types of events, including a Smash Brothers, a FIFA, PlayStation, which we've done in the building on our own. But I'm like, why am I not utilizing their skill set to help run some of these selected events? So we're going to come together as their club and our club or organization to try to run more events, which ironically, I chatted with him a little bit about platforms for maybe this summer. And I mentioned to him about Mission Control, and he had heard of it. In fact, I sat in on one of their demos last week, and when I got done with him, he had recommended, he didn't know much about Mission Control, but he said he had heard of GG League. So I know there's some different platforms out there to choose from, but I didn't know if you had heard anything about Mission Control, or if that was the best place to set up free intramural online gaming for the summer or back in the fall.
Mm-hmm. We have been using Mission Control right now for our esports, and mostly that is because we are partnering with our esports director. We have a varsity program, so he's been a huge resource for us, and also with a dean for our, we call it Global Campus. That's our online program. You may have seen the commercials, no matter where you are. And they already had been using that, and it's been great. I really like it because of the convenience factor. They do almost everything for you, which is a one easy thing. I'm sure you can take more control if you want, but they really help laying it out for, especially for someone who is not very well versed in esports like myself. It's been great, and I'm actually participating, and they're making it super easy. I'm getting killed every single game. I have not won a single one, and it's been a great learning opportunity. But I would recommend it.
How many games did you initially start out offering, or what would you either number, or what did you pick and choose to go with initially?
So we started with NBA 2K20, Madden, Rocket League, Super Smash Brothers, and Mario Kart. Our most popular leagues are Rocket League, and I think part of the reason that's popular is because no matter what console or platform you're on, you can play with any other console, whereas NBA 2K20 and Madden, the leagues can only be set up by, if you're PS4, you can only play people that are on PS4 or
Right.
PS5 or whatever PlayStation we're on, or if you're on Xbox, you can only play Xbox. So we have smaller group sizes for those leagues. Rocket League is big, and Smash is huge. Mario Kart I thought would be way more popular, but it's actually our smallest league, and I don't know what the reason is for that, but that's where we started. There's a lot of options out there, like Fortnite, you could do that. I saw someone mentioned that as an option. I know that Call of Duty put out a new, similar to Fortnite, where I think it's Call of Duty Warzone. There's a lot of options out there, but that's what we started with as a good place to go, and we have the ability to add from there.
Did you go 2v2 on the Rocket League and Smash Brothers, or did you go 1-1 or 3-3 to start out?
We do 1v1 for the league that we're running.
Okay.
And then we'll do like drop-in events as well. Like we'll do Monday night drop-in Smash Brothers, and we're also doing like Jackbox games, which is more of a party game style thing, and we work with our esports director on streaming that over Twitch, so more people can play. And people don't need to buy any software; they just need to log in on their computer, and they turn their phone into the controller pretty much, and they do games like trivia and trivia, like one called Quiplash, which is similar to like I think it was Balderdash, which is the actual board game. But those games are relatively cheap. They're about $20, and you get 6 games for $20, and they're always having sales. So I would check those out.
It's funny you say that. And not that I want to hog the conversation, but I was just going to mention, somebody had told me about House Party was a very easy drop in onto the phone that kids could jump in on and play against each other. So we're looking to add that one too.
Yeah, I haven't used that, but I've heard people mention that a lot. I'm gonna give somebody else. I feel like you've heard my voice enough. Glenn Kemper from Logan University. You've been using Mission Control. Can you talk a little bit about how your experience with them has been?
Yeah, sorry, I had to unmute myself. Yeah, we've been working with them, I don't know, 9 months maybe. And the guys there have been great. Andrew, everything you've said has been basically our experience too. I'm not getting a whole lot of participation there, but we're a grad school, and I couldn't tell you why, but we're not getting a whole lot. But we're going to keep trying. We're going to keep growing it. But Rocket League 2v2 has been our most popular, and then we also have Super Smash Brothers. And from what I can tell, our students enjoy it. And it's
And Glenn, really easy, being the hesitant one, kind of like Andrew said, I haven't been actively into doing this. Pretty easy to set up, get it going, no major issues.
absolutely. I don't even own a PS. I don't have an Xbox. I'm not sure my computer could play games. And like, who was it that said they played Pong? That was me. That was me, you know. And Andrew, yeah, like I said, everything you said has been my experience too.
I'm
That's
glad to
that's
hear I'm
good
not the
info.
only one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
I think my question for everybody that's doing all of this, are you tracking your student engagement with this? How are you making sure that this can then translate into numbers that you can take to your administration, when you're, looking at, budgets and, personnel and things like that?
I've been working with my wellness instructors to make sure they report back to me how many are sitting in on week to week, because one, if we're getting zero numbers, we'll drop it. But we've been tracking for a small school. We've been getting 10 to 20 people in, like on our yoga classes. Well, that's great information to take back and share with the those who want to know that people are engaging, I guess is a good way to put it.
For those doing esports, do these platforms actually give you really good tracking data as well? I mean, I know, like I said, Andrew, I know you use this a lot.
Yeah, from what I've seen so far, it's very similar to IM leagues. I mean, you have a little less access from what I'm seeing, but you can download and get the same reports. Essentially, you may need some administrative assistance, but they do have those capabilities. From what my experience so far, I don't know the full extent of it, but my biggest question is like for like Zoom group fitness. How are we tracking? How are people monitoring who's accessing those classes, and maybe limiting who has access to those classes if need be? I know a lot of places have been using like IM leagues to send out the link 15 minutes before class. Some places are just putting the link on their website. That's pretty much what we're doing, and just tracking through names and emails associated with accounts to try and see who's coming in. But is anyone running into any barriers there or issues with access to accounts? Laura Fitzgerald, Stony Brook, if I remember correctly, use fitness platform at Leto. Closed group, so you need the SNHU, I mean, not SNHU, sbu.edu email, I'm assuming.
Yeah. It's been good because it's basically like preventing others who don't have an SBU email. Like, they can't even get the Zoom link unless you have a Stony Brook email. So like, it's good security wise in that regard. And then what's really great is when the class goes live, the link is in there, and then we actually get stats, like data about the students who took the class, just like we would normally for an in-person class. So that's been very helpful for us.
Awesome, thank you. I'm seeing a lot of people sending emails. I have people that are, checking in, taking attendance at the live classes, and seeing the views on recorded classes. Instructors must let them in. That's a good way to do it as well. I think recently Zoom really upped their security and automated, waiting rooms and things like that, and passwords, which is always a great idea with everything going on and all the Zoom raiders or whatever they're called. So we have about 10 minutes left with everything. Ooh, we have a question. Oh, here we go. Yeah, thank you for reminding on copyright issues with music. Who has encountered that? Who has had to deal with that so far? Karen, I'm assuming you're asking this because you've either nervous. I know if you don't mind speaking up a little bit about it and talking about the question a little bit more, I may have some people that I'm hoping are on the call that can talk a little bit to it.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I have the question because I am running the Zoom classes right now for Group Fit and doing a lot what you do, using IM leagues for people to register. But my question is, we're looking down the road that we may consider, we have really good attendance, So we have people that have never done it before. So this is something we may look at in the fall or when we reopen to continue. But I do know that I am worried that the Zoom platform's not ideal, but if we did obviously Facebook Live or Instagram Live, that won't work because of our music. But I was wondering if anybody has thought about that in the future for how we're delivering this and worried about the music copyrights.
Mm-hmm. One of the comments in the chat is we've run into copyright as well. Pandora business account will work. Would you mind speaking to that a little bit? That's my understanding. If you're paying for that access, like we pay for Rockbot on campus, so we can use that for our classes. And I know Zumba instructors, as far as I understand, they have access to certain playlists that they can use. But if I lost a comment already, I think it was.
No,
I'm not.
it's Lazaro. Yeah, we do Pandora, a business account. It runs you about $26 a month, which is quite expensive for a university our size. But it will allow you to have Pandora or an outside group manage the copyright of the music that you're playing. Not exactly sure about sorting, what you want to play. I'm sure you could, do a yoga or, a fitness class if you wanted to, and use the music and create your own little playlist. We haven't done that yet. We just use it for our facility.
Okay.
Anybody else have some insight on this?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that you could do as well is just talk with your general counsel and see, if you've got questions, they're going to be the first line, especially with copyright, issues, talking to them, say, hey, what can we do? What can't we do? Is there a service or is there a program that we might be able to use as well? Yeah, to me, that's where I always go when I've got questions like this.
Mm-hmm. And Dee just mentioned, is there a way for people to see the class at a later date? Zoom has a recording capability. I know that if you may need to pay for that to have it like automatically record to the cloud, or have it record to a local computer. But Zoom has that capability, and that's what we've been doing. So we download it and upload it to YouTube after the fact. All right. Anyone else have any? I know if we miss something, now's your chance to get it in.
Does anybody use Wellbeats? We have Wellbeats. It's a Wellbeats virtual trainer. They gave us a code for our university that we gave out on IM leagues and to some of our instructors, because our instructors use the Wellbeats as well. But it's a virtual trainer system. You go in, you can download an app right now, and they will allow you to play the different classes. There's yoga classes on there. There's Zumba. There's all types of classes on there that you can do virtually and away from the general facility. But that also gives you, they send me a report and I get stats of how many uses they have, who's used it, if it's male or female, if they provide that information, and so forth. So it's a really good platform. We have a kiosk at our facility that we use, but like I said, with this COVID-19 that we're dealing with, they gave us the app, which you can pretty much buy that as well in the programming.
Awesome. And I think the more that we can do with that kind of stuff, the better. So again, try to be creative, try to think through it, and look for the best ways that we can to get that out to our students. Interesting question real quick from Drew. Anyone having their instructors read like a disclaimer before classes, or for workouts you're posting, things like that? I think he's thinking more kind of along the lines of like the PAR-Q questions, for working out and being able to participate in exercises, kind of like a virtual waiver type thing. So if anybody else has any awesome ideas on that, we've got just a couple minutes left.
I'll be happy to say what we are doing. Brenna again. Our Zoom, Zumba and Strong classes, The instructor takes 15 seconds at the beginning to just say that it's a reminder that any exercise program brings with it physical limitations and risks. And remember, you're doing this at your own risk, but we encourage you to take breaks. And it goes into having a clear environment and surroundings. And from what I've gathered from the risk management roundtables and then doing some of my own research, that, is pretty much a blanket disclaimer statement that, you couldn't get away with right now, given the circumstances.
Awesome. That sounds a lot like what I do with fitness consultations right now online. Is I'll go through the PAR-Q and then talk to them about, being, what it really means and all the, all the legalese, and kind of speak through that to them. So.
Awesome. Well, I think we're getting close to that time. Chris, right?
I think we are. It's been awesome to host these sessions with y'all. We don't have a set date for the next one yet, but keep looking out for those. There will be what were we talking about before the call? Is there another one scheduled?
Hi, Chris. Yeah, this is Christine Haluzek from NIRSA, and there will be a small programs directors roundtable being held in the next week or so. The date and time hasn't yet been set, but watch the In Motion page for those of you that are directors. This was upon request from some members that wanted to hold that. So, and I think we're open to doing other sessions if there's interest and people want to keep this going. So.
Thank you, Christine. And be sure to check out the website for any other roundtables that are going on. Check out the Career Week. Is that next week?
It is, and there's over 15 educational sessions that will be happening around that are 30-minute sessions about how to build your brand and all kinds of things like that, in addition to the resume review and mock interviews and the kind of typical for what happens at conference. But we're definitely building out some more of the webinar programming elements for people to take advantage of.
Mm-hmm. And definitely check that out, even if you're a pro staff. I think if you've been in your position for 5 days or 50 years, you might learn something. So definitely check it out. It's not just for students. Awesome. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming in. This is like I've seen in the chat, this is my favorite roundtable as well. I'm glad we get to do it again, and hopefully we'll get to talk to all of you either in another roundtable or some other session down the line, and hopefully in person in the future.
Absolutely. Like I said, this has been an absolute pleasure to host these. We look forward to talking with you every time we're out there, and we'll continue to do these as long as we absolutely, as long as we have, people interested, and, we're excited. So hopefully we'll see each other again very, very soon in person with elbow bumps.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Be well.